All right, good day. It is June 10th, 2022, and we are starting to rock and roll with summer. Temperatures cooled off a little bit this week, but if you looked at the forecast at all, you would have seen that next week we're getting into the furnace. One thing we noticed up in the northern part of the state was a fair amount of red thread activity, and I also saw some leaf spot on tall fescue. Other than that, I think relatively good growing conditions, but I'd expect we're going to start to see some problems arise next week. I got a big crowd online today. So Dr. Danneberger, Dr. Petrella, Dr. Scheller, Dr. Gardner, the inimitable Pamela Sherratt, Sod Hicks, and first up today, in a very illustrious situation, Pamela Sherratt.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Really excited to be here with Brian Gimble, who is the Director of Field Operations for OSU Athletics, and exciting stuff happening in the shoe. He's going to tell us a little bit about what's going on in Ohio Stadium this week.
Yeah, we figure it's the 100-year anniversary of Ohio Stadium, so it's a good opportunity to put a brand new field in here. So about 2 weeks ago, we ripped the old field out, cut it up into pieces. I'm sure you'll be able to buy it in the novelty stands here during the season if you want some, and donated some of it and got the rest of it out of here. So now we're putting in the new field, doing something a little bit different this year. We're installing a pad under this field. The last two that we had did not have a pad system on it. The pad's made up of recycled materials, and it's going to give us some good resiliency for this field. They tend to get hard over time, so the pads are going to give us a little more life and try to keep it a little softer throughout its life. They're in there out here now putting down the green turf. This is not even the whole second day, and they've got over half the field down already. So
can you explain what these guys are doing with that sticky tape?
Yeah, that's their seam tape. And what they do is they've got a glue box there. They dump the glue into the box and they pull the paper through the box, and it puts the exact right amount of glue out on the paper all the way across. So that's how they get the seams tight, uniform, and held together strong.
So when's the first event you've got in here, Brian?
First event in here is going to be the Buckeye Country Superfest on July 16th. So about July 8th, 7th or 8th, we start setting up for that. So the first event's going to have a stage on the field and a sold out country music concert. So
now,
Brian, I have a question. I'm assuming that the glue is all alcohol proof.
Yeah, right. I think so. The country concert is not, though.
So Brian was kind enough to give me a little tour of all the new projects that are going on. Can you just give us a quick update of some of the new stuff you've got going on, Brian?
Yeah, we put in 2 new grass practice football fields, just resurfaced the top, resoldered them, and they're doing great right now. We did that in the fall, and now the team's working out on them. We also replaced the indoor football field. That finished up about 2 weeks ago, right before this one started. And again, the team's in there working out on it and really loving the new surface. We're also replaced the field at our field hockey field, and we're building a new lacrosse specific stadium that'll have a heated field in that one. So we got field projects all over the place this year. It's nice to get some work done.
Yeah, so we're pretty excited. Brian's agreed. He's always very accommodating. We're going to bring the STEM camp. The kids that are on the STEM camp are going to come down on the morning of Thursday, the 7th of July, and spend a little bit of time having a tour and looking at all these new fields, and we'll be talking about all the different technologies, things like that. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you very much to Brian. Anything else to add, Brian, before we sign off?
I don't think so. Just can't wait for this football season. We're gonna have a good one.
We are. All right. Thank you, Brian Gimble, and we'll hand off to you guys.
Thanks, Pam. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. Okay, next up, the infamous, still alive Lazarus, Dr. Danneberger, who needs to unmute himself.
So you missed my announcement, but that's okay. No, I'm just kidding. Thanks for the introduction, Ed. Mine's just a short announcement. It has to do with this past Tuesday. I was down in Cincinnati at Blue Ash Golf Club, where the Cincinnati Superintendents hosted their research and scholarship fundraising tournament. I did not win. Our team did not win. That's the most important thing probably, but it was a great day. They raised significant amount of money. A number of, they give one turf scholarship, and then they give a number of scholarships as legacies toward sons and daughters who are going off to college in different areas. So it's pretty effective. And also too, they give money toward research, which I believe they announced their grant to Dominic. So helping support get his program off the ground. So it was a great day. The course was in great shape, especially given the amount of rain they had earlier down in Cincinnati earlier in the week. That's about it. Besides, I just need to get out more and play because my game's not that great. So I got to figure out how I can request that for leave to improve my game. But just kidding.
I think you just did request it, Carl.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Anybody wants me to come play, just text me.
All right. After that opportunistic approach, following up with pestilence topics.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Not a lot to report this spring on diseases. It's been a really eerily quiet year so far, disease-wise. As Ed said, a little bit of red thread popped up on high cut. We didn't really run into dollar spot till after Memorial Day weekend. A little bit of that showed up, and it cleared out very quickly, either with applications or with weather changes, depending on where you're living at. But like Ed said, the other shoe is dropping next week, the third week, June. We got some real tough weather coming in. It's also vacation season, so play is going to be up a lot more than usual. And we're going to have some really warm nights. You add a little humidity to that, and dollar spot for sure will be coming and showing its nasty head. And I expect to see, if you've dealt with Pythium or Anthracnose, you might want to make sure those areas are covered. I expect to see that arise, and maybe some leaf spots. So hold on your hats if you're not covered or you're not using some really strong broad spectrum fungicides. You might find yourself in trouble come the end of next week. So just take a look at your sprays. Make sure you're not cutting anything short or leaving any gaps, and everyone should be fine. That's it for me.
Hey, Todd, one question. Would you say ahead of next week that if people are thinking about things, and they're late, maybe getting late to it, is it systemic or contact if they've only got one option?
I'd say use what you got, Ed. Some people are rich and they've got all kinds of options. Other people are sticking more towards contacts, saving money. They don't have the money. Contacts work great. It's just when you're using a contact and we get into real severe weather like we're going to have, don't go for that full length window. Don't go for the 14-day or the 21-day, whatever the highest rate you can use and the lowest application interval you can. That's where I'd stick with the contacts.
Fabulous. One other question. Any update on the position hire?
Yeah, the committee meets in a week or two to look and see at our application pool and decide whether to go forward, or if we don't have enough or enough qualified applicants to revisit that and maybe rebrand it and try again. But there's been no talk of which way we're going to lean, so we'll see probably in the next 2 weeks whether we feel we've got a good candidate pool or not.
Well, progress regardless. Thanks, Todd. All right, next up, the inimitable Dr. Dave Gardner with the pestilence of weeds.
Okay, sorry about that. I clicked the wrong sequence of buttons, and so I ended up sharing my screen before unmuting myself and then did not know what to do, apparently. So what I was going to talk about was, I know—
If we don't see your screen.
Oh, you don't see my screen? Oh my. Let me try again. This is being recorded too, isn't it?
And I'm not editing it, Dave. This is fabulous.
There we go. All right. How's that now?
Yep.
All right. So I note that the yellow nutsedge is about a week ahead of schedule. I attribute that to it being a little bit warmer than normal, but this is another one of those years where we're on pace to get 50 inches of rain. So it's just ideal weather for the growth of sedges. Yellow nutsedge, remember, grows about twice the rate that our cool season grasses do. So, 3 or 4 days after mowing, they become pretty easily visible in the turf. We are starting to see more green kalinga, which tends to form mats as opposed to the nutsedge, which is more of an individualized plant. But one thing to mention is that when you look at the sedge herbicides that are available, when I do trials with these products, statistically, they seem pretty similar. And so as far as recommendations go, I would say, use the one that you have had the most success with. And if you're not having good success with a particular product, switch to one of these other materials and try it out. But one comment that I would make is that there are combination herbicides that are meant to control both broadleaf weeds and sedges, and some of those, they tend to have sulfentrazone as the sedge control product in them. And sometimes they don't have a high enough rate. So if we wait, like a week or two from now, you can have a situation where those combination herbicides might become not as effective for the control of sedges. They'll still do great on the broadleaf weeds, but they won't be as effective on the sedges. So, make sure that you're using either the right combination product or spray one of these materials individually. And then crabgrass right now, depending on where it is in Ohio or within your landscape, should be about 3 to 4 leaf, maybe even putting on a tiller or so. If you get closer to heat sinks like driveways, asphalt, or, like bare soil areas, you might start to see a couple of tillers. But right now, the crabgrass is still relatively small. I did get a couple of emails last week from people sending me pictures of that were similar to this. If you have big, fat, sassy leaves poking out of the turf, there's a decent chance that that's not crabgrass coming from seed, but rather field paspalum that's coming in vegetatively. And if that's the case, the herbicide recommendations are a little bit different. And I'll talk a lot more about grassy weed control now that we've gone to a weekly format. I'll talk more about specific herbicide recommendations next week. So that's all I've got.
Dr. Gardner, thank you. Dr. Petrella.
Oh, of course. Are you seeing the wrong screen?
Actually, no, unlike me, yours was good.
Am I good? Okay. So about a couple months ago, starting in April, we put out a research and outreach survey to the Ohio community, as well as the United States community, to try to get a better feel of the type of research that you want us to do here at Ohio State. These are some of the questions, and I want to go over some of the answers that everybody provided, but what's unfortunate is we only got 35 responses. So from April to June, out of the entire Ohio turfgrass industry, we got 35 responses. We got some really good answers, but it's a little bit depressing that only 35 people responded to this survey. It was blasted out by OTF. We had it on Twitter, so it's pretty accessible. So the first question we're going to look at is ranking the following. So from least important, or most important to least important, 1 to 16, in terms of research that you want us to do. The second question we're going to look at is then written responses. What's the most significant challenge you're dealing with? The third question is describe to us maybe specific project you'd be interested in seeing us performing. So 2 and 3 are related. And the fourth is going to be for you to rank from most important to least importance of how you like us to deliver or how you want to see research results given to you. So here's results for that first question. So rank the following from most important 1 to least important 16 in terms of research you would like to see. So we had 16 research items. And the idea was you rank it as a number 1 or you rank it as a 16. 1 would mean you really want to see it. 16 meaning you don't care 2 craps. So the average here would be the average ranking across all of those 35 people. So the smaller the number, the smaller that average, that means more people want to see that research. So these are the top 5. Fertility best practices, pesticide evaluations and best use, summer stress management, nutrient and pesticide fate, and growth regulators in these best use. So across those 35 people, this is the type of research they want to see us do. Fertility is great. Ed and I and Dr. Gardner, we're going to be having fertility projects coming out this year on high cut and putting green type turf. So you're in luck to say that we kind of understood that that was a need. Pesticide evaluations. So come look at some of the written answers. I don't think people want to see spray and pray. Kind of getting into what people wrote, they want to see alternative products they can use if something isn't available. Because of the current market situation, you might not be able to get what you normally use. So people might want to see data for other products that might be able to work as effective. On the other ones being pretty standard. Nobody wants to see information on pollinator habitats and pollinator lawns. That was a little bit shocking and not shocking. I would say that most of the people that respond to this survey are in the lawn care industry. Okay. And they're kind of going with the standard. Okay. But this is something, pollinator lawns, you're going to see more research coming out of this group from that in the next couple of years. So I went ahead and made a word cloud out of the results for what people wrote is what's the most significant challenge you're dealing with. So for this word cloud, the larger the word, the more the people use that word. So to me, this is very economical. So people are dealing with cost. So things are becoming more expensive. So they're trying to find things that are cheaper or available. Products. So products was in term as what's available or what's an alternative I can use if what I normally use isn't available. And time. So a lot of people responded to, of course, they don't have employees, and they're looking at how to manage time and manage healthy turf with less people. So we're looking at people, they need more research related to cutting costs and cutting time. Okay, to me, that goes into low input turf. A lot of times you can cut time by simply using an alternative species that uses less or grows less. Here's some word-to-word responses for that. So someone said they are looking to have enough time and resources to perform their cultural practices. Struggling with increased cost of product, which then turns to greater cost for the consumer. And they're always looking to maintain quality with less input. This person was struggling with dynamic costs of product due to supply issues. Staffing availability and product availability. But also looking at products that are efficient and cheaper. The next was to describe a specific research project you might be interested in seeing. The biggest one was lawns. So most people responding to this question were looking at solving products for home lawns, not necessarily golf or athletic field related. Okay, they're looking for updated best practices, sometimes things to enhance recovery related to, say, athletic turf. But again, a lot of these were, how can I get more with less time? Okay, and I think that's across the board at every turfgrass person or managing turfgrass in the United States. We got specific responses like, do research shows anything that shows me how to reduce inputs without negatively impacting plant health. Okay, we got some people talking about shade. Okay, people talking about dollar spot on home lawns. I know that's been a big issue in Ohio in the last couple of years. Turf type tall fescue cultivars that are more tolerant to Ohio conditions. Reducing fertilizer rates with not sacrificing efficacy. I like the last one is updating the 1/3 rule. So we always talk about mowing height. This person suggested we need better research that circumvents the 1/3 rule to update how often you might want to mow. Last but not least was to rank from most important to least important in terms of how you'd like to see us disseminate results to you. Okay. And these were our 11 ways to disseminate results. So the top two were what we're doing right here, turf team time videos and the OTF conference and show. So people really like these short ways they get information from us weekly in the summers. Okay. That's second to none compared to the OTF conference and show. Followed up by field days and other ways. What surprised me is people actually rated peer-reviewed research articles higher than blogs. So what's nice about that is going forward, a lot of our research is called open access. It's going to be free. So we'll be able to get you more and more of that research they actually do that you might help pay fund. We'll be able to give it to you free, hands off. And that's all I got.
Dr. Petrella, blowing the doors off. All right, some interesting insight from that set of information that was given to us. And following that up with more pestilence, Dr. Shetler.
Okay, let's see if I can get this going. My share button is off. There we go. I wanted to, since I haven't been around for about 3 weeks on the Turf Team Times, I wanted to catch up on what I'm seeing and hearing about in the insect world. Number one, we did have another golf course here in Central Ohio that reported to me this week that they've detected the annual bluegrass weevil on their course. The damage is showing up typically as first as sort of in the middle of the daytime drought symptoms, and then eventually the turf goes out. And again, this is usually the poania that's in the collars and surrounds of golf course greens and sometimes on the tee areas. This kind of damage can also appear typically along the edge of fairways that are susceptible to the annual bluegrass weevil infestations. What people are finding right now, once they see the spots and they go digging around, what they'll typically find are the little legless grubs. They're most of the grubs that I've had pictures of over the last week are in the last instar getting ready to pupate. If you find the pupae can be differentiated from the black turfgrass attenuus because if you look at them with a hand lens, you will notice that there is a little distinctive snout, which is typical of the weevils that would be on that pupa. Now, if you're seeing those, remember that especially if you're in the middle part of Ohio or down in the Cincinnati area, I'm really worried that instead of having just one generation, we may have multiple generations. We're beginning to see this in some of the areas here in Ohio. This was a study done by a graduate student in Virginia, which is kind of, if you think about it, sort of the same latitude as the southern part of our state. And what she found was 3 distinctive generations of the annual bluegrass weevil. And so this can be problematic. If you didn't get rid of the first generation, you might end up with these a second or possible third generation causing some trouble. So if you want to do a quick rescue treatment, if you are finding the fairly mature grubs, these are the insecticides that are recognized primarily by Ben McGraw at Penn State. He's doing most of the research of testing these chemicals, so I've been involved in some of these also. Here in Ohio, I've had really good success with Arena or Aloft, the Aloft being the combination product that has clothianidin in it. The Bayer people are recommending that Tetrino seems to have some pretty good curative studies. Also Ference, another one of the anthracotic diamides, has very good curative control. And of course, our old standard Dilox has always provided very good curative contact control. That would even possibly give you some control of the pupae, which aren't feeding. When it comes to if you think you've missed that generation and you might have had survival and you might be getting the summer adults, our next strategy is try to kill those summer adults to prevent their egg laying. And again, we have several single-use insecticides, things like acephate or orthene. If you could still get it or have it in stock, chlorpyrifos or Dursban is an excellent adulticide. Here in Ohio, we have not documented much resistance to the pyrethroids. You hear all of these reports in the New England states about resistance of the annual bluegrass weevils to the pyrethroids, but we've not documented that here in Ohio. They still seem to be quite susceptible to all of the pyrethroids, especially bifenthrin or Tolstar. However, I really caution everybody, if you're going after the adults, try to keep it down to one application, maybe 2 applications of a pyrethroid in a single season. Otherwise, pick another material. We don't want to develop resistance here. And the way that you develop resistance, if you apply a pyrethroid 3 to 4 times a year against the annual bluegrass weevil, you're going to develop resistance. We know that. So be cautious of that. There are some combination products. I kind of like these combination products, especially if you apply them now into July, because the neonicotinoid component of these, the imidacloprid and clothianidin, will give you that grub control that you might want later on in the season for those. So consider these, and we'll probably have some more discussion about those as the summer goes on. When it comes to the bill bugs, we've had sufficient rain across the strait that our turf is pretty well growing through the classic bill bug damage. However, the damage is still out there. If you find what looks like dead seed head stems and do that tug test, and you pull up those stems and find that the stems have been hollowed out and they're filled with the frass, you've got bill bugs there. And while you may have gotten through the first generation of bill bugs, I'm really worried about a second generation of bill bugs. But the good news in that one is that if you didn't apply a bill bug preventive treatment in May, your white grub treatments that you'll be applying here in June and early July should knock out that second generation of the bill bugs. And so, again, if you're using a grub control now, you should take care of that second generation of the bill bugs. When it comes to the armyworms, so far, so good. It appears that we're clean. Some of the agronomists are running pheromone traps, and they're stating that the common armyworm captures are well below what they normally get for a season. So our common armyworm doesn't appear to be building up populations that would damage our turf, and that usually occurs in July. When it comes to the fall armyworm, the big pest that we had last year, the southern folks have been strangely quiet. When I have checked with them, they say we're not seeing anything. And last year at this time, they were making a fair number of reports that they were seeing damage from it. So right now, my prediction that we will not repeat a fall armyworm infestation seems to be holding up. But we'll tell you again as soon as the fall armyworm pheromone traps go out, and those usually go out in July. We'll be monitoring those and see if we do get a big flight in from the southern states. White grubs, again, now is the time to be considering your white grub treatments. We did have a pretty significant flight of the May-June beetles. However, we've only seen some very sporadic populations of the May-June beetle grubs. It's still a little bit too early. We're just beginning to get into the season for the emergence of the mass chafers and the Japanese beetles. Those are our 2 most common grubs in our turf grass, especially in the lawn care and on the golf courses and sport fields. And my feeling is that the populations were way low next year. It usually takes about 2 years for Japanese beetles and mass chafers to build up to damaging populations. So I'm not really expecting a major problem with the white grubs this year. Finally, I've got a couple of companies that really would like me to perform a couple of chinch bug studies. Normally we do these on home lawns. I see most of the activity of the hairy chinch bug on fairly new lawns, usually ones that have been seeded with or sodded with Kentucky bluegrass. And usually the chinch bugs will show up about 1 year to 1.5 years after the establishment of that turf. If you do find one and you think the homeowner would be willing to have the bug doc go out there with his cylinders and float up chinch bugs, And I will promise that I will treat the lawn or the rest of the lawn for chinch bugs so that the damage won't extend much more than from our study site. Again, feel free to send me a message at the Shetler.1. And I look forward to hopefully hearing from some of you about chinch bugs. Okay, that's it from the Bug Doc.
Thanks, Dr. Shep. A whole lot of opportunism going on today. Free golf for Carl and free bugs for Dave. The one question that we all have, of course, is where is Todd Hicks at? But regardless of that, a couple other things coming up. So we have the Ohio Lawn Care Association Field Days in Worcester next week. The OTF Field Day or OSU OTF Field Day going to go ahead August 2nd, followed up by the Olka Lawn Care Field Day on August 3rd down in Columbus. And then there is the event in early October for OTF for the scholarship outing at Hickory Hills, if I remember correctly. So feel free to get involved, folks. We are very much appreciative of all of the support. With that, expect to see us again next week with some probably dastardly pictures of dead grass based on the temperatures that are forecasted. Talk to you soon.